Today, our Mystic Snapshot deals with the Transfiguration of Jesus. According to Mystic Maria Valtorta, she says, Jesus is proceeding with his apostles and disciples. Simon of Alphaeus is with them too. They're going southwards, crossing the hills that encircle Nazareth and a small river, and they're walking across a narrow plain between the Nazarene hills and a group of mountains to the east near Mount Tabor. They reach it. Jesus stops and says, Peter, John, and James of Zebedee will come up the mountain with me. The rest will spread out at its foot, going in groups towards the roads that run along it to preach the Lord. I want to be back in Nazareth by evening, so do not go too far away. Peace be with you. And addressing the three, he says, Let us go. And he begins to climb without turning back any more, and with such a quick pace that Peter finds it difficult to follow him. You must realize that Jesus was a good bit taller than the short, stocky Peter. When they rest for a moment, Peter, flushed and perspiring, asks him, panting, But where are we going, Lord? There are no houses on the mountain. On the top there is only that old fortress. Do you want to go and preach there? Jesus says, I would have gone up the other side, but you can see that I have turned my back to it. We're not going to the fortress, and those who are in it will not even see us. I am going to be united to my Father, and I wanted you to be with me, because I love you. Come on, quickly. Peter says, Oh, my Lord, could we not go a little slower instead and speak of what we heard and saw yesterday, which kept us awake all night to talk about it? You always go quickly to the appointment with God. Come on, Simon Peter. I will let you rest up there. And he resumes climbing. Jesus arrives at the top of a high mountain. Peter, James, and John are with Jesus. They climb higher up, and their eyes rove over open horizon. It's a beautifully clear day. It's very high, and the view extends over a very wide range. The Lake of Gennesareth looks like a strip of sky. The Jordan looks like an almost straight stroke of a brush in the greenery of the plain. Some villages are scattered here and there on both sides of the river. Some are only a handful of houses. Others are somewhat larger, with the look of little towns. The main roads are yellowish lines among the green. It must be springtime, perhaps the month of March. Jesus, after a short rest in the cool shade of a group of trees, resumes going up. He goes almost to the top, where there is a grassy tableland with a semicircle of trees near the side of the mountain. Jesus says, You may rest now, my friends. I am going over there to pray, and he points to a large rock. Jesus kneels on the grass and rests his hands and head on the rock in the posture that he will take also when praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. The top of the mountain protects him from the sun. Meanwhile, Peter takes off his sandals, shakes off dust and grit, and remains barefooted, with his tired feet on the cool grass, almost lying down. James does the same, but in order to be comfortable, he looks for a tree against which he leans his mantle and rests his back. John remains sitting, looking at the Master. But the calm of the place, the fresh breeze, silence, and fatigue overcome him, and he droops his head along with the others, and he starts to doze. None of them are fast asleep, but they are in the state of summer drowsiness that stuns people. They are roused by a brilliancy that is so striking that it overwhelms the brightness of the sun and spreads and penetrates even into the shade of bushes and trees where the apostles are. They open their eyes, and they're astonished at seeing Jesus transfigured. His face shines with an extremely intense light in which his sapphire eyes are beaming. He looks taller, as if his glorification had increased his height. Jesus is now standing. I would say that he is raised off the ground, because between him and the green meadow there is something like a luminous vapor, a space consisting only of a light upon which he seems to be standing. It is a snow-white incandescent light. Jesus is looking at the sky and smiling at a vision that enraptures him. The apostles are deathly afraid, and they call him, as he is transfigured so much that he no longer appears to be their master. "Master, Master," they call in low voices, full of anxiety. He does not hear. He is in an ecstasy, says Peter, trembling. I wonder what he sees. The three are now standing up. They would like to approach Jesus, but they dare not. The light increases further because of two lights that descend from the sky and take place at Jesus' sides. When they settle on the tableland, their veils open and two majestic, bright personages appear. One is more elderly than the other, with a sharp, severe countenance, and he has a double-pointed beard. Two horns of light depart from his forehead and make me understand that he is Moses. The other one is emaciated, bearded, and hairy, more or less like the Baptist, whom I would say he resembles in height, leanness, structure, and severity. While the light emanating from Moses is white, like that of Jesus, particularly with regard to the beams issuing from their foreheads, the light of Elijah is like the bright flame of the sun. The two prophets take a reverential attitude before Jesus, and although he speaks to them with familiarity, they do not drop their respectful attitude. I do not understand even one of the words they speak. The three apostles fall on their knees, trembling and covering their faces with their hands. They would like to look, but they're deathly afraid. At last Peter says, "Master, listen to me." Jesus looks round, smiling toward his Peter, who takes heart again and says, "It is wonderful to be here with you, Moses, and Elijah. If you wish, we will make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, and we will stay here to serve you." Jesus looks at him again and smiles more warmly. He looks also at John and James. A glance that is a loving embrace. Also Moses and Elijah stare at the three. Their eyes flash fire. They must be like rays piercing hearts. The apostles dare not say anything more. Frightened as they are, they lapse into silence. But when a veil, which is neither fog nor a cloud nor a ray, envelops the three glorious personages behind a screen that is even brighter than the one that surrounded them previously, and hides them from the light of the apostles, a powerful, harmonious voice vibrates, filling the air. The three bow down with their faces on the grass. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." Peter, on falling flat on his face, exclaims, "Have mercy on me, a sinner." It is the glory of God descending. James does not utter a single word. John whispers with a sigh, as if he were about to swoon. The Lord is speaking. Even when there is total silence again, none of them dare raise their heads. Thus they do not even see that the light has come back to its natural state of daylight, and that Jesus is alone and has become the usual Jesus, wearing his red mantle. He walks toward them, smiling, touches them, and calls them by their names. "Stand up. It is I. Be not afraid." The three dare not raise their faces and are imploring mercy for their sins, fearing that the Lamb of God wants to show them to the Most High. "Stand up now. I order you," repeats Jesus authoritatively. They look up and they see Jesus smile. "O Master, my God," exclaims Peter, "how shall we be able to live near you now that we have seen your glory? How shall we be able to live among men and among ourselves, since we are sinners and we have heard the voice of God? You will have to live beside me and see my glory until the end. Be worthy of that," Jesus says, "because the time is close at hand. Obey my Father and yours. Let us now go back among men, because I came to stay with them and to bring God to them. Let us go. Be holy, strong, and faithful in remembrance of this hour. you will take part in my greater glory. But do not speak now to anybody of what you have seen. Do not tell your companions either. When the Son of Man has risen from the dead and gone back to the glory of the Father, then you will speak, because it will be necessary to believe then to take part in my kingdom. Peter says, "But is Elijah not to come to prepare people for your kingdom, so the rabbis say?" Elijah has already come to prepare the way for the Lord, Jesus says. Everything is happening as was revealed. But those who teach revelation do not know and do not understand it, neither do they see or recognize the signs of the time or the messengers of God. Elijah has come back once. He will come back a second time, when the last time is close at hand, to prepare the last for God. He now came to prepare the first for the Christ, and men refused to acknowledge him. They tortured him, and they put him to death. They will do the same to the Son of Man, because men do not want to acknowledge what is good for them. The three lower their heads and become pensive and sad while descending the mountain with Jesus by the same road they came up. After a short while, it is Peter who says, while stopping halfway down, "Ah, Lord, I also say what your mother said yesterday. Why did you do that to us? And I also say, why did you tell us that? Your last words have destroyed in our hearts the joy of the glorious sight. This has been a great day of fear. First we were frightened by the great light that roused us. It was stronger than if the whole mountain had been shaken and ablaze, or the moon had descended to light up the tableland right in front of us. Then your sight and your rising from the ground, as if you were going to fly away. I was afraid that you, being disgusted with the iniquity of Israel, were going back to heaven, perhaps by order of the Most High. Then I was frightened when I saw Moses appear, as the people of his day could not look at him without a veil, so brightly the reflection of God shone on his face, and he was still a man, whereas now he is a blessed spirit inflamed with God. And Elijah, divine mercy, I thought I had come to say my last moment, and all the sins of my life since the time I was a child and used to steal fruit in the pantry, to the last one when some days ago I gave you wrong advice, came to my mind. And trembling with fear, I repented. Then I got the impression that those two just men were fond of me, and I dared to speak. But even their love frightened me, because I do not deserve the love of such spirits. And then the most dreadful of all fears, the voice of God. Jehovah has spoken. He said to us, "Listen to him, you," and he proclaimed you, his beloved Son, in whom he is well pleased. What a fright, Jehovah, to us! It was certainly your power only that kept us alive. When you touched us and your fingers burnt like points of fire, I had the last fright. I thought that the hour had come when I was to be judged, and that the angel touched me to take my soul to the Most High. But how could your mother see, hear, and live in that hour that you told us yesterday, and not die? And she was alone, a young girl, without you. Jesus says, Mary the Immaculate could not be afraid of God. Eve was not afraid while she was innocent. And I was there, I, the Father, and the Spirit. We, who are in heaven, and on the earth, and everywhere, and who had our tabernacles in the hearts of Mary, says Jesus gently. Peter says, "How wonderful! But later you spoke of death, and our joy came to an end. But why all that just to us three? Was it not better to give the vision of your glory to everyone? Just because you became senseless when you hear me speak of death, and death by torture of the Son of Man, the man God decided to fortify you for that hour and for the future by means of the foreknowledge of what I will be here after death, Jesus says. Remember all that, so that you may tell people in due time. Have you understood? Oh, yes, Lord. It is not possible to forget it, and it would be quite useless to tell people. They would say that we are drunk or we are insane. They resume their way downward toward the valley, but when they arrive at a certain point, Jesus takes a very steep side path toward Endor. That is the opposite direction to the place where he left the disciples. At the foot of the mountain, they see the whole group of the disciples, who are very excited, and with them are some curious wayfarers and some scribes. Alas, scribes! And they are discussing already, says Peter, pointing at them. And he walks down the last few meters half-heartedly. This is Joe Roberts.